First, let me announce first that I have nothing to reveal like that, so don't bother waiting for it. So, hello, Toastmasters and guests. In fact, I will be telling you nothing new, but a very old story that has been told many times within my circle of family and friends. So one of the reasons it may have been told so much is because it illustrates, among some things, how growing up in the Chinese culture engenders a great, almost fanatical respect for elders, and also the importance placed on not losing face or saving face, and not causing other people to lose face, especially those older than you. But I think it's mostly because it's a fun story to tell to a captive audience, of which you are just the latest one to hear it. So, fellow Toastmasters and guests, many, many years ago, my father first came to this country from Taiwan to study chemical engineering at the University of Louisville. As someone who was new to this country, the university provided him with a host family, which in his case was Mr. and Mrs. Reinhardt, who were an older couple who lived in a house in a neighborhood adjacent to the university. So they would do all sorts of things to help him out, like invite him to meals or social events and drive him to places he needed to go, just to help him adjust to life in a new country, which engendered his and our enduring gratitude for the help they gave him when he was basically alone in the country. Eventually, my father did graduate, and which is a real milestone, and he obtained a job at the University of Louisville, so he stayed in the area, so we continued to periodically keep in touch with the Reinhardts. But I most particularly recall a visit that we made to them when I was about 10 years old. My brothers and my father had some other appointments that day, so it was only my mother and I visiting them. Let's see, yes, I mentioned I was about 10 years old, and so when we arrived, by that time, Mrs. Reinhardt had become a widow, and she had moved to a smaller apartment in the neighborhood next to the one she used to live in. But when she took us into her apartment, she seemed older than she had seemed, but still as friendly as ever. So after some time talking about old times and what we were doing now, she said that it's time for dinner, and right before heading to the kitchen, she smiled at me and said, "I've got a special treat for you." Oh, great. As you can imagine, I was really filled with anticipation. But I was totally dumbfounded when she came back from the kitchen with a very large pot of cheese grits. But here I have to let you know that at that time, both my mother and I had a real aversion to cheese. And I've largely outgrown it, but back then, even the smell of cheese would sort of make me queasy. And one thing, I hated butter just as much. And some of you may know, cheese and butter are the two main flavor ingredients for cheese grits. But I thought it can't be that bad, really, so it probably won't be that bad. So maybe it tastes more like grits than like cheese. So I thought, I'll try it. It can't be that bad. So picked up my spoon, ate a spoonful, and I thought, this is literally the worst, most horrible tasting stuff I've ever eaten in my life. Now, in most dinner parties that you go to, it's easy to avoid eating something you don't like because generally there's a variety of things being served. So you can just eat the things you like and avoid the things you don't. And in general, there are lots of people just sort of milling around and talking to each other. So no one's really paying attention to what you eat anyway. But in my case, there is only one thing to eat, which is a large bowl of cheese grits in front of me, and Mrs. Reinhardt sitting across the small table from me with an expectant smile on her face. So basically, I was trapped. Now, but some of you know there are several strategies for eating something you don't like. Like what little kids do is they hold their nose while eating. Of course, that would be too impolite to do in that circumstance. So I try to approximate that same effect by just holding my breath while eating, and try to combine that with just sliding the grits sort of down the side of my mouth so that maybe it would go down my throat without touching my tongue. But unfortunately, the main effect of those exercises just really slows down your eating. So it just prolongs the agony. An alternative strategy is to just eat it as fast as you can and just get it over with. So that's what my mother did. However, she ate her bowl of grits so quickly that Mrs. Reinhardt gave her a second. After we were finished with the grits, she served us pumpkin pie, which I gladly accepted and enjoyed. Unfortunately, my mother likes pumpkin pie about as much as she likes cheese grits, so for her that really capped the evening off. So years later, although it didn't diminish our affection for Mrs. Reinhardt, we still talk about that terrible meal. And she still complains that my lack of alacrity in eating forced her to accept a second bowl for the sake of the family dignity. So I wonder how I could have handled it more gracefully. I think if only I had had Toastmasters or table topics training back then.